Hi everybody. There's been a great deal of news coverage and social media posts regarding the events in America where an unarmed black man named George Floyd was killed while he was detained by the police. There's now been 7 nights of demonstrations and protests across all of America. Protests have been taking place on the streets of big cities like New York, Los Angeles and Chicago. The majority of these protests have been peaceful, but violence has been breaking out. The National Guard, which is a reserve army, has had to be called in to restore order in Minneapolis, where George Floyd was killed. They haven't had to get involved in the city since World War II, and Donald Trump has recently said that he's willing to bring in the army to settle down the protests. Now, you will see a slogan that says Black Lives Matter and an end to police brutality. Now, this is not the first time that the police have been accused of being racially motivated and using unnecessary force against black suspects. Now, in 2013 is where the Black Lives Matter campaign started. It started because a man called George Zimmerman was let off murder charges for killing an African-American teenager called Trayvon Martin. Angry protests took place in response to this, with people saying that black people were treated differently to white people. These protests have been sparked off again because of the death of George Floyd. These protests have now spread across the world, including the UK, to show solidarity against prejudice and discrimination. A number of celebrities have now marked their support for the Black Lives Matter campaign, including sports stars and singers and actors. You will also see a little black box appear on social media today on people's profiles to show support for the campaign against this discrimination and against the events that are happening in America. You may have seen images of these protests with the protesters holding a hand with a clenched fist. This is a symbol that has now been intertwined with the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, the raising of a closed fist as symbol of black power has a long history. The Black Panther Party was set up in 1966 to fight for civil rights for African Americans in America. They were set up to fight police brutality, but also to liberate black people. The Black Power Fist was used repeatedly as a symbol of this fight for black liberation. A very famous and iconic moment happened in the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, where American sprinters Tommy Smith and John Carlos, who both received medals, each donned a black glove and raised their fist while the national anthem played during the medal ceremony. Years later, when Nelson Mandela was released from prison in 1990 after spending 27 years in jail, he left with a clenched fist. You will also see pictures of the protesters kneeling. And recently, Liverpool Football Club have released a picture of their players kneeling during practice to show solidarity towards the campaign for Black Lives Matter. Kneeling in solidarity for the Black Lives Matter campaign is not a new thing. In the summer of 2016, the San Francisco's quarterback, named Colin Kaepernick, knelt during the national anthem to protest against police brutality and racial injustice. Since then, the gesture has become symbolic to the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, we understand that this can be a confusing time and these events are difficult to comprehend. As a school, we teach quite a lot about minority groups, but we need to continue to educate ourselves on what has and hasn't changed. Now, for the Key Stage 3 students, year 7, 8 and 9 students that are listening to this, if you visit the CBBC website and look for News Round, you will find a lot of articles that will help you develop your knowledge on the events that are happening. For the Key Stage 4, the year 10s and 11s that are listening to this, I'm going to be sending out an email with some podcasts and some articles for you to read. Now, any of those post-16 students that are listening to this, Myself and Miss Ince are going to be holding an open discussion on Microsoft Teams on Friday at 2 p.m. to talk about issues surrounding Black Lives Matter. We will be sending an email out to you with an agenda with some articles for you to read before that. All post-16 students are welcome to join our open discussion on Microsoft Teams. I would recommend you download the Teams app on your phone, or you can access it through the Dover Christchurch Academy website. Those historians and sociologists amongst you, you will have background knowledge on the Black Lives Matter campaign and the racial injustice for ethnic minorities across the world. But this is open for all post-16 students. If any students would like to ask any questions about the Black Lives Matter campaign or the events that are happening in America at the moment, then please feel free to email me. Now, I hope that you're all staying safe, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.